Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C and the good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners and Latin America, also across the pond, and London, England, as well as Paris, France, and of course you good old boys in Canada. You know we love you, Canada, but Big C just knowing we love more than all the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave. But I do want to say, I want to take this moment to say it's 9/11. We know what that means to our country, and it's one of the worst memories that we have as being Americans. But our country has come back. Big C, your thoughts on 9/11 and what it means to all the families that lost loved ones. Big C, your thoughts.
This day will live in infamy in America, 9/11. It's the 16th anniversary of that horrific event that occurred in New York and in Pennsylvania and Washington, D.C., Charlton, but it affected all of America.
Yeah.
That's one of those moments that brings a country together when you look at tragedy and you need a response and you need leadership. The past President George Bush, galvanized this country by bringing it together, by making America what America should be, one who stands together, not dividing the country in a time of tragedy, Charlton.
Yeah.
He pulled everyone's heartstrings together as a central tone to defeat the axis of evil, Charlton. And, I want to commend President Bush for what he did for speaking to America, letting America know that we were a nation of one, and we would not let somebody get away with a horrific event like that on our soil.
Big C, that's a very good point. And for so many people, 9/11, I remember seeing the hole in the ground in New York City, Big C, and the Twin Towers not there anymore. And obviously that means a lot to a lot of people, especially the people who were going through that and seeing all the tragedy that happened. But you're right. One thing that I can say about President Bush, whether you love him or hate him, the man stood up, and I think he threw out a baseball at one of the games, I think at a Yankees game. But he galvanized the country, and we'll always have partisan politics. That's part of the country. But for the President Bush to stand up and bring all of our country together and say that we're all the same, we're all Americans, we're all going to get through this together. I thought he did a great job in just bringing our country together, a lot different than what we have now. Big C, your thoughts on two Republican presidents? One, obviously, through tragedy, brought this country together, and now we have one in the White House that every moment he gets, he's tearing people apart. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that's what a commander-in-chief is all about, the leader of the free world.
Yeah.
President Bush, at a time that America needed a leadership, stepped up as a leader. He showed America that he was here for everybody.
Yep.
Regardless of race, creed, or color.
Yeah.
His job was to protect and seek out those who had created harm on our home soil.
Yeah.
And he did that, Charlton. He did that undauntedly. That was his focus.
Yeah.
And, when we look at the condition of America today, as far as how we're going after people, and not people who are harming America, but people who have aided America, Charlton, over the decades.
Yeah.
But, 9/11 is one of those horrific things, Charlton, that so many people were changed the lives and the direction of America. Even as today, it's still feeling the effects of it. We've lost some 47 police officers, Charlton, have been affected by the chemicals and dust from that horrific day in New York that have lost their lives since 9/11, Charlton, directly, attributed to the effects of the collapse of the World Trade Center, Charlton. And want to send your thoughts and prayers out to those families as well as everyone who lost their lives on those days, Charlton.
We definitely do. And Big C, I just want to thank everyone for paying tribute and saying a prayer for all the families and all the Americans who are still dealing with that. Big C, I want to touch on some college football, but before I do, I want to say that Sloan, I think her name, she's a great Sloane Stephens. She's a young player. She looks like a new Serena Williams. And then you have Federer, you have Nadal. They've made some names for themselves in the U.S. Open. Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, when you think about Sloane Stephens and Rafa Nadal, Charlton, winning the U.S. Open, you had 4 women in the semifinal, 4 U.S. women, Charlton, which was a great feat. And Sloane Stephens being the first-time winner of this event, it just catapults U.S. Female tennis into the next generation.
Yeah.
It's been dominated so long by the Williams sisters, and now we have new stars on the horizon by having 4 women, U.S. women, Charlton, in the finals. That was a great feat for America. Rafa Nadal on the men's side, Charlton, between he and Roger Federer, they won the 4 Grand Slam events on the men's side.
Yeah.
2 men. You're talking about old geezers. In the late 30s,
Yeah.
winning the four men's titles, Charles. There's something dominant about veteran leadership in any sport, Charles.
Yeah.
And 38.
And obviously, we're having just a few issues with our microphone, but I think people understand. Down in Florida, they lost 8 million people without power. We did get our system up and running, Big C, so we'll bear through that as well as we can. But I do want to say that congratulations, especially Sloan's being such a young person. Big C, isn't it nice as you get older, you think about how good things were in life when you could get up and nothing hurt, Big C? Remember those days?
What day was that,
Usually.
Remember it. The last 30, 35 years, I've gotten up and something hasn't hurt.
That's funny. Usually, it's like this before you in your teenage years. That's when you have that. I do want to talk about a little bit of hurt that was put on the Ohio State Buckeyes in college football. One of the premier games of the week coming up. Well, in the past, actually, over the last weekend, Oklahoma, a game that was revenge motivated by Oklahoma. Ohio State went into Norman and beat them up pretty good last year. But to go into the horseshoe and win 31-16 over an Ohio State team that is loaded, I just get you talked about Oklahoma making a coaching change. And, a lot of times people think that may not be a good thing. But Urban Meyer, no one beats Urban Meyer, Big C. But Oklahoma went in there and made them look pretty average for a Big Ten champion, or actually not even a champion from last year, but a championship caliber team, Big C. Your thoughts on Oklahoma and what it means for the Big 12 overall teams? Go ahead.
I think this is a reflection of Lincoln Riley, the new head coach at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Bob Stoops in the past had always found a way to lose one of those big games and knock them out of the championship running, Charlton.
Yeah.
But Lincoln Riley has brought a new day and a new mentality to Norman, Oklahoma. He was an assistant coach under Stoops. So he learned all the shortcomings that Stoops had, and he was able to transform the Charlton going down into the horseshoe.
Yeah.
Now, he has one of the best young quarterbacks in the country. You think about Mayfield.
Yeah.
He's been around in college football for the past 12.
I thought he graduated, Big C. He's been in Oklahoma for so. Someone might want to look into that eligibility. Man, I thought Baker Mayfield was back when Troy Aikman played for the Sooners, Big C. Your thoughts?
He's been around some time, Charlton, but he does have some experience.
Yeah.
Oklahoma always has a great stable of running backs. Every time you look around, it's like, where did they get this from?
Yeah.
It's been their history. And now they've upgraded their passing game, Charlton, because they came out with a history of running the ball.
Yeah.
But now they've become a very solid passing game. They've had a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, Charlton.
Yeah.
So this is a well-rounded program. And you think about Baker Mayfield for passing for 366 yards and 4 touchdowns against this great Ohio program, Charlton.
Yeah.
But the bigger problem is Ohio State. If you think about them a week ago, Charlton, they struggled.
Yeah.
Against the University of Indiana.
Yeah.
Offensively, in that first half, they were down.
Yeah.
And you think about J.T. Barrett, the starting quarterback who's been around in Columbus for some 5 years.
Yeah.
He has not completed a pass, Charlton, but just one pass in the last 4 games over 25 yards.
Yeah.
You think about it, you go 4 games and you only complete one pass over 25 yards. Opposing defenses take note of that.
Oh, yeah.
And so they can stack the box and shut down your running game, Charlton, because they were playing a freshman in the backfield and not worry about your receivers downfield. And that's what we saw from Oklahoma. They were able to get the pressure on Barrett.
Yeah.
Because he's had a problem finding open receivers. He has no they can't read defense, Charlton.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Big C. You did predict that win would happen, so I think Switzerland went in there and knocked off Woody Hayes back in the day with the Sooners, knocking off the Buckeyes. And so good job for Oklahoma, really putting their conference on the map, because they've been slighted the last 2 bowl pitchers, Big C. They were just knocked out and could not even consider it for their conference championship going to the playoffs. Clemson, last year's defending national champion, ranked number 3 in the country going into the game against Auburn, which was ranked number 13 at the time. A 14-6 win. Not a great offensive showing, as we would expect from a team like Clemson, going against a very strong defensive team of the SEC. But just your thoughts on Clemson with a young quarterback and getting that win in Death Valley, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Clemson, here it is in the national championship that no one really gives any chance to.
Yeah.
They have a great program. You think about this defense. They go into Auburn, one of the toughest places to play in the country. They get 12 quarterback sacks, Charlton.
Wow.
Generally, when you're playing a freshman at quarterback, that will help them a lot. They only scored 14 points. But that was enough because you limited Auburn to only 2 field goals in the game, talking with this Barnett defense. And everybody knew coming in, this Clemson's strong suit, playing defense. Dabo Swinney recruits on that side of the ball as well as any coach in the country.
Yeah.
So he's giving his young quarterback an opportunity to develop. They didn't have the offensive output that they had the week before, but they got enough of it, Charlton, to win a game. And sometimes you only have to score points to win when you have a great defense.
Yeah.
Now the toughest part of the schedule will come up. But this Clemson, Charlton, is just going to be a good team as the season goes on.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Big C. So we'll find out a lot because what I do love about these college programs, Big C, they're all testing each other in the first week, either week 1 or week 2. So I'm really happy for these programs. We're getting to see some really good college football. We don't have to wait until the conference starts like we've had to over the years. Penn State, last year's Rose Bowl runner-up because USC kicked a long field goal at the end, but they were in the head of the fourth quarter by 10 points against the Trojans. Now they get this team. They're rolling again. They're back, ranked number 4 in the country, 2-0 in the season. They blew out Pittsburgh, their in-state rival, 33-14. Is Penn State back? I know it's hard to say that when they won the Big 10, or as you call it, the Big 19 conference from last year. Big C, your thoughts? Yeah.
They have no credit. They got Ohio State and Michigan, everybody talking about it.
Yeah.
They were the conference champs.
Yeah.
They represented the conference in the Rose Bowl and had a very outstanding offensive performance, Charlton. If not by a field goal, they would have beaten USC.
Yeah.
They got all of their offensive weapons back, the quarterback, the top running back in the conference, a great receiving core, Charlton. This is a team that's going to cause problems. Coach Franklin's done a wonderful job over the last 3 years turning this Penn State program around. About all the problems they have in the past, they have such a great future.
Yeah.
What they do offensively and defensively, they're very aggressive. They get after people, and they don't take their foot off the throat when they got you down.
That's a very good point. They remind me of back in the day how Joe Paterno, they would win 14-7. They're still a win. They don't have to win 45-21 like a lot of teams want to do. I want to go out west, Big C, of the West Coast. USC Trojans, obviously a huge game coming up against Texas in the Coliseum this weekend, but they were ranked number 6 going into the contest. They've moved up slightly. They're 2-0 in this season, and they really got an impressive win over Stanford, 42-24. Hard to see Stanford give up that many points, but USC, this reminded me of the teams that Pete Carroll had. They were big, they were physical, and they had better talent at the skill positions. I look at Sam Darnold. He was a Pac-12 Player of the Week. He had 21 or 26 passes, 316 yards, 4 touchdowns, even had a couple of passes that were dropped. Trojans win 42-24 in front of a packed crowd, over 90,000 at the Coliseum. Big C, your thoughts on the USC Trojans?
Well, this is one of those big West Coast games, Charles. It's become a rivalry over the past couple years. We go back to the days of Jim Harbaugh and Pete Carroll when they established that. But Clay Helton now has really developed his program in his second year at USC, got off to a rocky start going down south, thinking that he could beat one of the better teams in the South, one of the better teams in the country.
Yeah.
But, West Coast football versus dominant football is a little different. And so, staying on the West Coast, he has a better chance of dominating out.
Do I hear some Southern partisanship, Big C? They just won't bring that moonshine next time the good old boys play, Big C.
When you travel across country, you got to understand there's grown man football and there's college football. So see how the way you play college football.
That's funny. Hey, well, they sent their brothers from the north, from Fresno State, and Jeff Teffer, the alumni of Fresno State that set records at the quarterback back in the day. They went down to Alabama. They lost at 41-10, but they were pretty close going into the fourth quarter, Big C, in that game. And then obviously the Tide pulled away, playing second and 13 players. But obviously you're right, SEC.
Fresno State's better than USC?
No, I'm saying, you know what?
Watch the words that you throw out there, Charles. You represent Fresno State.
That's so funny. Hey, well, they're picking on the West Coast. You know what? They picked on the West Coast. They also beat Washington last year. So maybe they're having their West Coast tour, and they got to find someone that's going to stand up to the good old boys down south. And speaking of the West Coast, you have the Washington Huskies, ranked number 7 in the season going into the game, with a 63-7 win over Montana. Michigan 36-14 over in the Big Ten up against Cincinnati, and Michigan goes to 2-0 on their Harbaugh. Wisconsin looks good at 31-14 over Florida Atlantic. LSU got their offense going 45-10 over Chattanooga. But a game I want to ask you about, Big C, a big game on a national schedule, a late kickoff game. Georgia ranked 15th in the country at the time, taking on Notre Dame. Notre Dame 1-1 on the season now. Georgia 2-0 with a 2019 win. Your thoughts on what did you see? Georgia has a great running game, but what did you see out of Notre Dame that makes you think that they can come back? Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, I really don't know. Brian Kelly is Charlton top 10.
Yeah.
You think about it, he only won 4 games last year. He lost his top quarterback, who's now starting with the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
He's playing a true freshman, Charlton, so he's in a rebuilding mode. And that's
one thing you said too about Kelly and Kizer being the starter for the Cleveland Browns. Recall last spring when Kelly said that he thinks Kaiser's not ready for the NFL, and here he is starting for an NFL team. For every recruit that's going to be recruited by Kelly to go up to Notre Dame, and you're gonna throw your own guy under the bus, and you say he's not ready for the NFL, he's a starter. How many top quarterbacks are going to go to Notre Dame and say, wait a minute, I remember hearing that comment on tape. He's not going to support you to go to the next level, Big C. He only wants you when you're under his belly. Your thoughts, Big C?
I'm here. I want players here for my benefit.
Yeah.
For me to win.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to prepare them for future life.
Yeah.
But that's what it shows now in South Bend. You lose this game to Georgia on your home field, Charlton. Even though you only lose by 1 point, I think the last time I checked in sports, there was only 2 columns. We had been long.
Yeah, that's funny.
Ties were like taking out your cousin. No big deal. It's common down here in the South, but we won't talk about that.
What? Yeah.
When you look at Kelly and his reaction to that,
yeah,
you can tell he's a trouble coach. Now, we look at college coaches who are on the hot seat.
Yeah.
And there was talk about him being on the hot seat last year.
Yeah.
But I don't see him going under the same bashing by the Regents that Kevin Sumlin went.
No.
Last week's loss to UCLA. There's a black and white difference there, Charles.
Yeah.
Now, here's a program that's always been looked at as a potential national championship.
Yeah.
Contender. Notre Dame. When you look at A&M, they've never really been looked at as a national championship contender.
No.
Conference that they played in.
Yeah.
But the community was for one of the most flood and devastated regions in America in history.
Yeah.
That they were concerned more mentally about home and family than they were about a football game after halftime.
Yeah.
So, it's a different perspective on how you look at coaches. Black and white. This is America, black and white.
Yeah.
The black coach, even though you put up 40 points in a game, Charlton, people are still calling for your job.
Yeah.
You're a white coach and you don't score 20, and you're okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't see that fact, but the fact that you mentioned it, they can't deny what they see in writing. I want to look at another team that they just don't have the profile, but no one can tell me that they're not impressed with the performance of Louisville and Jackson, the Heisman Trophy candidate. And obviously, when you talk Heisman Trophy now, he's not even at the top of the conversation. They're always trying to find someone to leapfrog him. But a 47-35 win. Louisville goes to 2-0. North Carolina falls to 0-2. They lost their first game to Cal Berkeley. But Jackson, there's so much he can do. 6 touchdown performance for Louisville. Why is he not the front runner again, Big C? All he does is win, win, win no matter what. A lot like that rapper called DJ Khaled. Big C, your thoughts?
Jackson, Charlton, he came out of nowhere and
Yeah.
put the country away in winning the Heisman. You came in with all your preseason Heisman favorites, and he wasn't one. All of a sudden, Jackson just lit the world on fire, Charlton, and I think that fire might still be burning.
Yeah.
After this last week's performance that he had against UNC, where he accounted for 6 touchdowns, Charlton, 5 passing, 1 running, and over 550 yards in total offense.
Yeah.
You showed me another Heisman potential top 5 candidate out there, Charlton, this week in college football that had accomplishments parallel to
Yeah.
what Jackson had. Nothing, Charlton. He is still the front runner for the Heisman. He is still the best individual player in college football. Now, there's teams out there, Charlton, that's better than Louisville.
Yeah.
That have better overall talent. But there's not a quarterback on the college level that's more talented than Jackson. Some may get more pubs like Donald,
Yeah.
like the kid out there in Washington.
Yeah.
They may get more pubs. As far as what you do for your college program, Charlton, there's nobody that can do more than Jackson on any college team in America.
No, I think you're right, Big C. He's an amazing player, and I wish him nothing but the best. I know they have a tough schedule coming up, but he's just getting it done. I do want to say that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to that billion-dollar industry. And for every athletic event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century. They work with Big C Sports, and they also cover pro athletes, your collegiate athletes, your high school players, even your mom and pop soccer leagues. And when you reach out to them, let them know that Big C sent you. Big C, this NFL football, obviously great football starting the season with a couple of teams going on the road and getting some big wins. And I think when you think about it, as great as football is, there are a lot of empty seats, especially San Francisco, when they thought that if we don't bring back Kaepernick, people will show up. I tell you, there must have been 40,000 people in a 70,000 seat stadium in San Francisco for the opener against Carolina. But I do want to just ask you your thoughts on this before we even get into a couple of teams and your thoughts on some performances. Tell me what you see as an advocate and an activist and someone who's been in as an athlete and also as a broadcaster. Do you see the progress that our society has made with Kaepernick being ostracized for a lot of things that people are buying into now? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Chuck, backlash that he got even from the White House.
Yeah.
About if you sign it, I'm going to send out a bad tweet about you. I mean, you need to start sending out bad tweets about yourself from the White House. All the propriety that you and your family have done.
Yeah.
Before and since you got into the White House. But you got to look around at the 49ers. These are fans who are not ignorant. They've been around a lot of success, Charleston, over the years. But this is only the third quarterback that has taken their franchise to the Super Bowl, Charleston. And so you have a lot of fans who are cognizant of that.
Yeah.
And when you replace him with somebody who's never really done anything,
they look horrible.
And you have a lineup that no one knows.
Yeah.
Why would you invest that hard-earned Bay Area money, Charleston, in one of those expensive tickets at Levi Stadium? Why would you waste your Sunday in an event that you know your team really doesn't have a chance to win? You go into a game and odds makers only give you a 12 to 15% chance of winning.
Yeah.
Why do I want to drop $200 on an NFL ticket for that? The NFL is the only way to think about it.
Yeah.
When you look at these stadiums that are not filled with capacity, you had two of them out there in California. You had one in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Also.
Oh, they were embarrassing.
40,000 people in it also.
Yeah.
And you had two of the worst teams in the NFL. So this is what you have to look at. When you go into games, Charleston, in the NFL, if you can't put a starting quarterback on the field, why do I want to pay you my hard-earned money to go out and watch Annie?
Well, that's a very good point. Hoyer had 193 yards. Jonathan Stewart 65, and Pierre Garçon 81. Cam Newton going to have to get his timing back, but you can see how dominant he is. I just want to run down a couple of thoughts and get your thoughts on things. Buffalo and New York. Buffalo with a 21-12 win. Tyrod Taylor 224 passing yards. McCoy had 110 yards on the ground, and Jordan Matthews led the receivers with 61 yards. But are you impressed with Buffalo, Big C? They always seem to start strong in the NFL, especially in the East. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, I think Buffalo had something solid. They brought back Tyrod Taylor, who was under a lot of pressure from the media.
Yeah.
And I don't know how the media learned how to be coaches over the years.
Yeah.
Even back when I played, it was amazing. Didn't know how to put a jock strap on the back. Knew more about football than the players or the coaches.
Yeah.
A lot of at the end of the season, during the offseason.
And just to let you know, we're still working on that microphone, Big C. I know we're having a lot of weather issues down south, but bear with us. We're going to get that worked out as soon as we can. But go right ahead, Big C. Keep going.
But, you think about the Jets, Charleston. I really feel sorry for Todd Bowles, the head coach of the Jets.
Yeah.
This is a guy that's in a lame duck situation. You got management almost telling the team to tank. They got rid of so many players from last year, Charleston, and they left him with the cupboards bare. And they started the season even without a quarterback. You look at their roster, you're going to tell me that all three guys that they have on their roster is better than a guy who couldn't get a job that used to play in San Francisco.
Yeah.
That's the amazing part about the NFL is that teams are demanding from the fans that they pay that hard-earned money. That you got to go to work all week and work and even for one to get city here. But yet we won't go out and put the best talent available on the field. And that's what the NFL has always said. We got to put the best talent available on the field. Charleston, I saw 10 quarterbacks starting this past weekend. The that shouldn't even dressed out for an NFL game.
Yeah, a lot of that's going on around the league. I do want to ask you, there's a thing, whether it's real or not, called the Super Bowl letdown. The team that loses the Super Bowl obviously has gotten off where they haven't even made the playoffs the last couple of years. But Atlanta last year, obviously they blew that game against New England in the Super Bowl, but they were up against it, Big C. At Chicago Soldier Field, they got out of there with a 23-17 win because Chicago couldn't punch it in from the red zone, Big C. But 321 yards passing for Matt Ryan, had a good game. Cone had 66 yards, a rushing leader for them, and then Austin Hooper 128 yards receiving. But your thoughts on Atlanta? Was Atlanta looking past the Bears, or were the Bears just playing their best game against a team that will most likely get back at least to the NFC playoffs? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, Atlanta didn't excite me at all in this game. Like, you think about it, the Bears had two drop touchdown passes in this game.
Yeah.
And I think about the long touchdown that Austin Hooper had. He ran 50 yards after the catch to make that an 88-yard touchdown after Ryan barely escaped a sack in that game, Charlton, on a blown coverage by the Bears defense. The Bears showed much better in this game than what I expected to. But Atlanta played at the level that I expected them also.
Yeah.
Charlton, I said at the beginning of the season, they were 3 games away last year from being a 500 team.
Yeah.
I still see them as a 500 team. I see the Bears being much improved. I think Glennon will be starting this week at quarterback. He really showed himself well when he came into the game, Charlton. He did some things moving the ball. Played much better than what I thought he would.
That's a very good point, Big C. I want to ask you real quickly. We'll run down just a couple of scores. Baltimore blew out Cincinnati 20-0. Andy Dalton, not impressive, 170 yards. Pittsburgh over Cleveland, 21-18. Roethlisberger, 263 yards. Antonio Brown. Should we just give Antonio Brown the best receiver award right now? 182 yards, Big C. The guy is absolutely amazing. Your thoughts?
Antonio Brown, Charlton, everybody talks about Julio Jones. Everybody talks about all the other receivers around the NFL. But, Charlton, there's nobody better than Antonio Brown in the NFL in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And when Ben can find him 10 times, Charlton, throughout the course of a performance for 182 yards.
Yeah.
Now, Julio Jones was taken out of the game by the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
Nobody is taking Antonio Brown out of anything. I think, the last time he was taken out was for dinner. That was about it.
Yeah. That's funny.
This guy is you can't find him half the time.
Yeah.
And he's fearless, Charles.
Hey, Big C. Did anyone find Julio Jones' earring? Did any of them good old boys turn it in? Did someone say, hey, I found that $150,000 earring. Can I get my $5,000 reward, Big C? Your thoughts?
You talk about on return on investment. I know we don't always have a target. But I'm kind of thinking that some of them might throw a little less. $150,000 is worth more than $5,000.
Yeah, that's true. Big C, is Carson Palmer done? 35-23 over, Arizona, falling behind to Detroit in the Dome. Obviously, Stafford. People say, well, isn't he worth this money? No. Look at how much better a team they could have. They beat an old, aging Arizona team. Palmer, I feel for him. Not the same quarterback he was when they lost that playoffs game at Carolina, and they were blown out in that one 2 years ago. Matthew Stafford, 292 yards. Abdullah, 30 yards, the rushing leader. Who can rush for 30 yards in an NFL game? Normally, that's what you get for one quarter. That's a whole game. Golden Tate, 107 yards. But I'm concerned about Carson Palmer. Is it time to cut bait, or is it just the first game jinx? Big C, your thoughts on Carson Palmer?
No, it's time for Arizona to retool, Charlton. Not only did Carson Palmer stick up to join, look like he was playing last year.
Yeah.
They lost David Johnson, their top offensive weapon that accounted for 20 touchdowns. He could be gone as many as 6 to 8 weeks, Charlton, with this wrist injury that he had.
Yeah.
You got to think about Fitzgerald. He's 34 years old now, Charlton, so he's not separating from anybody in the secondary. He's a great
possession guy. Yeah.
Not a game breaker any longer, Charlton. So this is a team that got old overnight.
Yeah.
And they got old last year. They didn't do anything to get younger this year.
Yeah.
And when you lose your best offensive weapon, Charlton, it's going to be just a struggle. So I would give Carson Palmer maybe one more game.
Yeah.
If he can't wake up and get some Geritol in his system or whatever, it's time for him to find out what splinters.
Big C, I know you guys, the good old boys down south, you guys can introduce that elixir. What's it called? Is it Shine Moon or something? Something. Oh, Moon. Yeah.
We talked about the injustice in America, system,
Yeah.
the incarceration system in America.
Yeah.
Now, you tell me, when was the last time that you saw an African-American man going down the street with $20,000+ in his car and $20,000+ in narcotics and get pulled over by the police and he's not in prison? This is the same guy who started Scott Bourdain yesterday against the Rams. Okay?
Yeah.
A guy that went into the game, Johnson, with an 0-2-1 NFL starting record.
Wow.
And he walked out of the game with an 0-3-1 NFL starting record.
Yeah.
Couldn't produce any points offensively, Johnson. No points. Against the Rams.
Yeah.
And I got to think that the Rams were the baddest team in the league going into this game. But, the Indianapolis proved me wrong.
Hey, I feel for Chuck Pagano. He thought they were playing. Chuck Pagano thought that.
Signed Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah.
He's one of the top drug addicts, traffickers in America. And he's the owner of an NFL team.
And people can Google that.
Colin Kaepernick can't play for him?
Yeah, and people, but maybe he doesn't want to when you realize some of it. Just Google the background. But even Coach Pagano thought they're playing the 49ers. Maybe it's just an off day for them.
Well, no, you think about Pagano. Was he riding around in the car? he don't know who the hell he's playing on Sunday. He ain't out too much, and they both using too much oxycontin.
Yeah, and they want to fire someone down in Texas A&M. At least he knows who they're playing, Bixby. I just thought that was a joke when I saw that. I want to get your thoughts, too, on also a bad look for L.A. Get some better paint. Home Depot has a lot of paint. I thought I was seeing USC, L.A. Rams. They didn't even cover up the USC Trojans logos on the Coliseum floor. Put some more money into making the Rams look like they're worth the NFL dollar. I think that's a bad look when you do that, Big C. But I want to give some credit to the Jacksonville Jaguars upsetting Houston at Houston. Obviously, their hearts are not there yet. They still have families cleaning up from the hurricane down there. But Jacksonville, they're going to Houston and good at 29-7 win. But the game of the week that I thought, Big C, down south, I thought the Oakland Raiders going across the country for an early game and beating the Tennessee Titans up in Tennessee, a 26-16 win. Derek Carr, 262 passing yards. Beast mode, 76 yards on 18 carries. And Michael Crabtree's back to grabbing everything that they throw his way again. Just your thoughts on the quarterback performance of Carr. He seemed like he's been in the league for 5 or 6 years, Big C. Your thoughts on the Raiders win?
Well, Charlton, he's always been the offensive weapons when you think about Cooper. You think about, Crabtree.
Yeah.
Tight end position does the job.
Yeah.
You brought in Beast Mode, who looked like he hadn't been out of football for the
Yeah.
past couple years. He's gotten healthy.
Who did he run over? He run over that 300-pound lineman. I forgot his name, but he ran him over helmet to helmet, Big C.
Well, you got this huge offensive line. He was motivated to play in this game.
Yeah, yeah.
Oakland played better than what I thought they would. Mariota didn't get the production out of his offense that he thought he would.
No.
The Raiders' defense played better than what anybody gave them credit for, Johnson. Their linebackers were just flying all over the field, doing a tremendous job of making stops on those big backs down in Tennessee, Murray and Henry.
Yeah.
So, the Raiders got off to a fast start. They're going to need to stay that, Charlton, because we saw what Kansas City did Thursday night in New England.
Yeah.
And Kansas City is the team that won the Western Division. What really surprised me is Oakland had another left-footed kicker.
Yeah.
Who looked better than Janikowski.
Didn't
they have some kicking war out there in Oakland. You're paying Janikowski $4 or $5 million a year.
3 now. They renegotiated his contract.
$100,000.
Well, they renegotiated Janikowski's contract for the injury part, but I think we see why. We saw that. The old guys go down to the car shops and they try to fix up their old 67 Chevys, and then they come out with that new Camaro that looks like the one in Transformers. Well, Janikowski's that old Camaro they're trying to fix up, even though he's a good kicker, but he missed a couple of big, long kicks last year. This new kid's a Bay Area kid, and I think Jack Del Rio likes him. There's a reason that Janikowski took a little pay cut for the Oakland Raiders, but I think it looks good for the team they have. 2 kickers that can go over 50 yards. Big C, another game out. We'll go back east, and I know Philadelphia, Washington, an interconference game, 30-17 Philadelphia. Carson Wentz actually looked pretty decent yesterday, 307 yards. Garrett Blount, 46 yards rushing, and Ertz at 93 yards. Your thoughts on Philadelphia getting a big win over Washington? I think Kirk Cousins is so washed up, and there's a reason they didn't want to give him all that money. Big C, your thoughts on Kirk Cousins?
Well, we thought that Kirk Cousins was who we thought he was.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
When you pay a guy $25 million, it couldn't even be a 500 quarterback for last year. There's a reason for that. And here it is, you don't go into a situation like this when you're struggling trying to come from behind late in the game, Charlton, when you're making that kind of money. You're
Yeah.
supposed to always be playing from ahead when you're making $25 million. But, I always wonder, I compare his situation with Odell Beckham. So Odell Beckham is one of the top 3 receivers.
Oh, yeah.
With Julio Jones, the kid is Brown in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Antonio.
You give Kirk Cousins $25 million, okay?
Yeah.
Odell Beckham can't get paid, and we saw what happened to the Giants without him. But Kirk
Yeah.
Cousins played a lackluster offensive game. The Philadelphia Eagles went out and got Carson Wentz some weapons in offseason. We talked about the upgrade of the receiving core, bringing in Jeffrey. And Aguilar looked like a number 1 draft pick in that game, Charlton. The running game was solid. Washington was troubled in the game, Charlton. They have no answer. When you put all your money into your quarterback, and you won't sign anybody else, this is what you expect.
Yeah.
A performance like you got from Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
Washington deserves everything they don't get this year, Charlton. And I don't think that they'll have a winning season with the Cowboys in that conference.
Yeah.
The Eagles are upgraded. You're going to see them win at least 10 games this year, Charlton, with Carson Wentz and all the weapons he has. They demonstrated that how they could beat Washington. Now, all of a sudden, all what Carson Wentz has to do now, Charlton, is learn how to put a little more touch on those short passes.
Yeah. Definitely looked like Peyton Manning in one of his touchdown passes where they couldn't pull him down. So congratulations to Carson and the Eagles for getting the win. I think that's one of the only cities that boo you when you win, Big C. So they had a good game yesterday. I want to ask you the most controversial game yesterday. And when you look at Seattle going on the road at Lambeau Field, I know that there's no such thing as Las Vegas. How far is Las Vegas from Green Bay, Big C? It's pretty far, right? Isn't it pretty far flight?
On a plane, Charlton, you can get there. And when you're wearing a lot of green on your uniform, I think that's what it is, a lot of green.
Yeah. Now, I've heard of the phantom call before where, they say, well, was it a hit or was it not a hit? Maybe he grabbed him, maybe he didn't. But I'm with Pete Carroll on this one. They're throwing players out of an NFL game for not even touching the guy, and you have a push on the back that was not a clip where a defense gets a touchdown. We know they win with the defense, and it's taken away. Now, we have all this NFL equipment in New York, and they want to go to New York and have the replay done in New York City, where everything is fair and love and war, especially in New York. Nobody does anything inappropriate in New York. But with all these high-definition cameras, what do you have, a 10K camera or something like that, Big C? These good old boys in New York can't get it right, and Green Bay gets a win because I think they were partly given a win. That's just my opinion. Your thoughts on the 17-9 Green Bay robbing of the Seattle Seahawks, and that's just my opinion, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, anytime you take a touchdown off the board in the NFL, that's generally the difference in the ballgame, and we saw that. This phantom call, and Adams enacted this against the defensive back where he grabbed him by the face mask and pulled him to the ground. The official's looking right at the...
No, wait a minute. Are you saying you saw that call, Big C, and the official in the game didn't see it?
Well, Charlton, we talked about it the last couple times these two teams have played. They're two of the most controversial finishes in the NFL history.
Yeah.
These phantom mystery calls with touchdowns or not touchdowns, interceptions or not interceptions. And here it is, we're watching where we're seeing a punch thrown and nobody's throwing a punch.
Yeah.
Other than the player that's grabbing by the face mask and flinging the other player to the ground. We're seeing a clip in the back when you push the quarterback from the side. If he was pushed in the back, he would have fallen. He would have went sideways.
Yep.
Yeah. So when we talk about the technological advancements of the NFL, why have instant replay if you're not going to utilize it?
Isn't that true?
The NFL should adopt some of the NBA rules. When there's a call made in the NBA, they will get together. 3 officials will get together. I think they got 7 in an NFL game. My math is not good. But I think 7 outnumbers 3. I'm not sure about
I think so. That's good old boy math,
They get together, Charlton, and have a conversation.
Yeah.
And if that conversation they can't work out things with, then they go to the monitor to make sure that they can collaborate properly.
Yeah.
We got NFL officials that won't talk to each other. We go to the monitor, they look at the monitor, the guy that's looking at the monitor is blind in one eye and can't see out of the other.
Hey, remember that commercial?
There's millions of dollars that exchange in NFL bets. Okay?
Yep.
And this was one of those things that millions of dollars moved the wrong way at one point.
That was egregious. I remember there was a commercial not long ago where they had the official left his mic on and they were saying, I didn't see it. Did you see it? No, I didn't see it. Did you see it? And he said, your mic is on. And then they realized that people could hear what they were saying. Obviously, if you're going to have replay, the whole world is watching. I mean, the whole world is watching. We got to find a way to get it right. Big C, the final game we'll cover last night. We'll get the quickly to update tonight's games going on. Dallas and in New York. Obviously, a marquee game on paper. But what's happened with the New York Giants? Does Antonio Beckham make that much of a difference? They can't even get a touchdown in Week 1, and Dallas 19-3 over the New York Giants, their rival, in a team that many people thought could win the NFC East. Prescott looks like he's been in the league for 7 years, 268 yards. Zeke Elliott, 104 yards rushing. Terrence Williams, 68 receiving. But not only was Prescott just impressive, did Eli Manning even play in the game last night? Why is he making so much money, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I think the Dallas Cowboys saw the same pathetic offensive line that I saw during the preseason for the New York Giants.
Yeah.
And then when you have a quarterback with no mobility playing behind a pathetic offensive line, that shows his vulnerability even more. Eli Manning is not even a 60% passer for his career, Charlton.
No.
But he still makes $22 million as a starting NFL quarterback. He's living a lot off his brother's laurels. He does have the 2 Super Bowl victories. It's hard to be pressed to find any other quarterback in the NFL other than Brady and
he has one. Yeah.
With 2 Super Bowl victories.
Yeah.
But it's what have you done for me lately?
Nothing.
When it comes about it, I think it's been about 6 years since they won that Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Charlton, that last one.
Yeah.
So it's been a long drought. And you brought in Brandon Marshall. Brandon Marshall is a decent underneath receiver. He no longer can separate.
Yeah.
And without Odell Beckham, I think we saw this scenario over a decade ago in Dallas.
Yeah.
When you had a guy that you didn't want to pay, and he said, well, okay, you don't want to pay me, I'm not going to play. I might be under contract. We saw that with Odell Beckham. Odell Beckham is not injured. If he was under new contract, Johnson, he would have been 90 to 100% for this game.
Well, I can tell you.
He didn't get his contract negotiated, so he was only 50% for this game.
Yeah.
And that's his mindset. Why should I play? I'm going to show you how valuable I am and how Eli Manning is not the leader of this organization.
Wow.
You need me on the field to make a difference.
Yeah.
Without me on the field, Eli Manning is not even pedestrian.
No.
He's Scott Dorzine of the Indianapolis Colts, Charles.
And what I thought about when I saw that, I remember Kaepernick's play last year when he had 16 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and he's making $22 million less than Eli Manning. And they showed Peyton Manning in the press box as much as Eli, more than Eli got in the end zone. And I think they only flashed the camera on Peyton Manning about 2 or 3 times. Eli not getting the ball into the end zone, and he's a marquee quarterback for that league. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Big C, tonight's game up in Minnesota. Atlanta has a beautiful stadium, but Minnesota Stadium, I would say, is right there. They've done a great job keeping stadiums downtown where you can at least see downtown, and also they let you see through the end of the stadium. It's a beautiful facility. They let you see through the end of it. But the emotional aspect, they retired Randy Moss's jersey up in Minnesota. They gave him a nice little ceremony, so that was wonderful for Randy Moss. But Adrian Peterson, what do you think? Emotion's one thing. We saw what happened with Beast Mode coming back and playing great for the Raiders. You expect the same kind of thing out of Adrian Peterson going home playing in Minnesota, Big C. Your thoughts?
I think Peterson, Beast Mode jumping, their legs are well rested.
Yeah.
You're going to be very dominant, at least for the first half of the season. And then coming back, playing with all that emotion, your first game of the season against a team who said you could no longer play.
Yeah.
You have a lot to prove in them. And whether you play another game beyond the night or not, you're going to leave it all out on the field tonight in Minneapolis. And that's what you get from AP. He's a consummate professional.
Yeah.
But now he's playing with the best quarterback he's ever played with in his pro career, Charlton.
Yeah.
With Drew Brees, who is going to create even more opportunities for AP. They're going to help each other out. If AP can get some yards on the ground on first down, that just really opens up that New Orleans Saints offense. If you think about that, the options that it's going to give Drew Brees, Minnesota could be in for a long night, Charlton. And we haven't seen a lot from Sam Bradford after the first 5 games of the season last year.
Yeah.
So he's struggling trying to get the game back under his belt.
Yeah, obviously, U.S. Bank Stadium, a gorgeous place to watch a football game. And I just want to appreciate everyone who's doing the best they can to build the best state-of-the-art stadiums. Big C, final game we'll talk about coming up, the Los Angeles Chargers at the Denver Broncos at Sports Authority Field at Mile High Stadium. I just crack up when I hear Mile High in Denver because we all know that we know it's high in Denver, okay? So your thoughts on San Diego staying grounded at Mile High Stadium, Big C, your thoughts?
Darnell Osweiler back in to that lineup. They're waiting on the young kids who
Yeah.
never really developed. Last year, their number 1 draft pick.
Yeah.
But Simeon keeps winning the job. He's a quarterback that goes into the offseason and the team doesn't say you're our starter.
Yeah.
He has to keep coming in and earning it. You know,
Yeah.
they're hoping that Charles can give us a spark out of the backfield with the running back position. But that defense, they're really going to need some help. You know, they're carrying this back up from Washington and all
Yeah.
season. And Bob Miller, there's a lot of pressure on he and Marshall at the linebacker position. They lost T.J. Ward at safety. But this is one of those games at altitude early in the season when it's still warm.
Yeah.
It makes it difficult for opponents. I give Denver the advantage, even though San Diego, ironically, Charlton, has beaten them 9 of the last 13 times they played.
That's a very good point, Big C. Back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Bandini Brown. He was Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He used to always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Charlton, just what you said, how can you lose? Cleveland into Charlton, 18
Wow.
consecutive games that they won. This streak is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's only 2 games shy of the 1992 Oakland A's.
Yeah.
And the flip side of that, Johnson, the Los Angeles Dodgers have lost 10 in a row. A team just
Yeah.
2 months ago, just a month ago, Johnson, everybody thought they were unbeatable. But now they've lost 14 of their last 15, 10 consecutive games. Which one of those streaks will continue to run tonight, Johnson?
Well, Big C, that's a very good point to look at. I mean, week 1 NFL football, very good for a fan perspective. Also, speaking of very good, every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide. Follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and the good old boys down south. I want to tell you, there's never, ever any reason to ever put your hands on a woman. If you know any woman going through that garbage, just call 911 so no woman has to go through that garbage on her own. And I should tell you, on every Big C Sports program, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.